So a while ago, which was probably 5 or 6 months ago, we did a video on comparing the streaming services, music streaming services. We compared some of them, like Apple Music, Qobuz,
People
Tidal.
had questions.
Yeah, and so as time goes on, of course, now we have comments to comment about. And
The conclusion I came to in our comparison video was that they're all different and the same. And what I mean by that is there's definitely differences between them, but they're not really as profound as people make it out to be. There's probably some that are better for some types of music, but to say one is better than the rest, that's tough.
No, well, that's what we found, though, is each one was better in different ways for each of us.
Yep.
Right.
And that's the confusing part. Like, that's the part people took away and go, you people are stupid because everyone picked a different thing, and therefore, it's like, well, that wasn't really why it happened.
Yeah.
We first of all, let's say the first thing we got to say is that we each picked our own 3 tracks to listen to,
Something like that. Yeah.
so they weren't the same tracks.
Right.
And we figure, well, we'll pick tracks that we know. And I happen to be kind of good at that because I've been using certain tracks for like decades.
Well, I didn't pick tracks. I know.
Yeah. Well, see, and that was that. Yeah. Well, so what were you after when you were picking your tracks? Like,
Well, I wanted the mystery. I wanted to actually compare them.
Oh.
For me, right? It was about going in a bit more blind and saying, can I
That's
tell a
totally
difference?
blind.
Does it matter to me?
so you found out that wasn't a good way to compare.
No, I think it was. That's how
Yeah.
I got some value out of it, I guess.
But
But
I mean, how
it
would that
wasn't
be?
that useful, I suppose. To,
Yeah. Well, that's the thing,
viewer,
right?
maybe.
Yeah. How could you judge something if you're judging the music first, and then you don't even know?
Yeah, it was like a
that
blind
sounds
taste
like.
test, kind of. It wasn't really like a critical
I
listening
guess.
experience.
Right.
Without knowing
I
what
guess-
Coke tastes like.
I guess that's the thing. Everybody came in at a different angle to the same test, right?
Yeah.
And then you didn't figure it out until after the test
Yeah.
was over. Right?
It wasn't very scientific.
Yeah, I guess.
No, I don't think it was meant to be.
Yeah, well,
You know,
it really
but-
wasn't. But
yeah.
it was just like it was essentially, could you actually tell a difference between them?
And we all did.
Right.
But that's
Yeah.
what the takeaway though is that your choice of the format was dependent on what you're listening to.
Right.
Right.
And that's confusing when you think about it, because it's like, this is why people can't seem to agree online as to what
Well,
their favorite is.
I liked Spotify on, I think it was the Linkin Park track, because it was like smoother and less grungy, distorted type sounding. So picking out which one you preferred is a little bit more complicated than just picking out what's technically the best.
Well, that's the thing.
What
You were,
provides the most
you were-
resolution.
You were choosing a format that fit that particular track or those few tracks.
The most desirable for that song.
Yeah. And, I come at it a different way. I know the song. I know it on hundreds of systems. I've heard it for years on vinyl, from digital, high-res digital, DSD, these certain tracks, so that I kind of know what you can get out of that song.
Yep.
So when I was comparing formats, I'm listening to these tracks going, is it giving me what I'm used to hearing? And I'm surprised you didn't go that way, but you didn't either. You picked different tracks.
Yeah, well,
You know?
I mean, I guess it's more of like the actual real world test then, because it's like, that's why people are always like, oh, this is the best on the internet, but they're not listening to the same tracks
Right.
either. So I guess
People
it's
typically
more
don't do
realistic.
this
Right.
with the same track. They usually don't go A-B between them.
Same with their comparing anything.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
You get a new amplifier, you get a new pair of headphones. I mean,
Right.
I think I found like people, they might not even realize it consciously, but let's say you get a pair of headphones and like the 1266s, right, noted for their bass. What do you think the first thing people are going to play on that headphone when they first get it?
Right.
They're probably not going to play the stuff they play all the time. They're going to look for bass-heavy shit to try to pull out what everyone was talking about, right? Stuff they're even not accustomed to.
Yeah,
or maybe
right?
that's all they listen to.
Maybe, but that's what I found is a lot of people will gravitate towards stuff they're not accustomed to at first.
Yeah.
So it makes for we found it makes for a difficult comparison, because you're not really in your comfort zone, so to speak.
I mean, I guess it's like anything really. It's like you get a new TV that's its headline feature is brightness. What are you gonna do? Go find some HDR content to go look at.
You want to see what it could do.
Right?
It makes sense,
You need explosions in space.
Yeah.
You go get a new car, you tell your buddies,
black.
hold my beer, and
Yeah.
you go do a sick jump or something, whatever it is you do with a new car.
Sick jumps, probably not.
Some parking lot burnouts or something. Anyways,
Contrast, man.
yeah.
That's what I think people are after. But see, that's the thing. Like that's the first thought process I think in people's minds when they try anything new is what they're trying to hear the contrast between the changes.
Right.
And
What
everyone's
did it
got a
do?
different way of going about it.
I guess so.
Yeah. But see, that's the thing. Like you can't fault what it showed. Is you can't fault an individual for doing it the way they did it. You could say that's not the way I would do it.
Well, yeah.
You could say there's another way to do it, or
course.
this is the way we could approach it, or whatever. There's always some other systematic
But
way
I-
to go about it.
I guess in the end, though, I didn't even think about this, but it did show how that is an actual realistic way to do it, because that's how it's done. Everybody would do it. Everybody would do it their own way.
With
There's
random-
this isn't like a standardized test that everybody does it the same way.
Well, that's what
Right.
I like about it.
Yeah.
But it did require a little bit of reading between the lines
Yeah,
to
I guess
draw
it
a
wasn't
conclusion.
that clear, is what it came
I
down.
could give a more of a summary.
Well,
I think this maybe is helpful.
Yeah, well, I think that the issue too is we think about what the people were watching it for. They figure we were going to give them the answer,
Right.
Right,
And I guess
we
it's
were
like,
going to
well-
tell them exactly the format they should be using.
I guess everybody wanted a definitive list.
Yeah.
Here's
But
the answer.
There
How
never
about
is a
this?
definitive
Yeah.
list on anything.
We'll go through and provide our
Yeah.
own answers. For me personally, without a doubt, Spotify is the best. If you're looking for discovery, just playing music, you're less concerned about fidelity. I like the app. It works pretty good.
Is it cheap or something, or was it free? Or?
Well, it depends. That's another issue. If you're a student,
like
they
why
have,
is it the best for you?
they're very good at providing you music you want to listen to. The discovery works well, for me at least,
Yeah,
personally.
got it.
But it depends probably on the music you listen to, what you want to hear and stuff like that. I like Apple Music the best for more critical listening. If you know what you're listening to, it works well. The discovery is not great. They have a desirable ecosystem, and they bundle the Apple Music in with other services, especially if you have a family or whatever that's
Apple
sharing
One or
services.
whatever it's called.
Yeah, it's great for that because it's pretty cheap then if you have 4 or 5 people or whatever sharing the services. Tidal, I think all around for more critical listening is the best. But again, the discovery, it's lacking.
Yeah, I like Tidal. I've used it for a few
Well,
years now at
it-
least.
Once it creates those playlists for you, and
Right.
if that's all you listen to on
Yeah.
it, well, then it's fine. But
It's-
yeah, the discovery is nowhere near.
Yeah, it's pretty good at following you around, and once it gets used to your listening habits, it creates multiple playlists.
And they all don't necessarily have the same library or the same song. So some songs they don't have or they don't have or they don't have. So it's really
Right.
complicated.
Yeah.
And then Apple made it even more complicated now because now they just launched their new Apple Music Classical.
Yeah.
So now it's only classical music.
But you could imagine if you really are into classical,
Right.
a separate app that's
Well, that's cool
dedicated
though.
for it.
Right.
That's
That's
kind of
cool.
cool,
Right.
you know. And it probably expands on the collection of music they have. So that's pretty cool.
So then you're
But-
only in a classical.
But
bubble.
you could see where everyone would have their own preference, and you can't fault any of them. You know, I mean, if someone comes in and goes and says what they're looking for,
Yeah.
I want critical listening. I want
Yeah.
maximum resolution. You're probably going to go Qobuz. You're going to go Tidal. You're going to do Apple Music. Those are probably the top
Yeah.
3, right?
Absolutely.
But if you don't care about that, it doesn't really
Well,
matter.
yeah.
Well, then are you a student?
Now it's what are you looking for?
Maybe
Yeah.
Spotify if
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
cheaper.
price is
Right.
the
Yeah, I'd
biggest
go for
thing,
price. Yeah. If you don't know what you want, free is good.
Yeah.
Or
Free's
Amazon.
pretty competitive.
Amazon has music too, right?
Right.
Yeah. Amazon sounds fine some of the time.
But what the funny take was on all this, and a lot of people look at it in a number of ways, was that they all did play the music differently. And sometimes we found it's settings in the phone or the device you're
Right.
playing it, which some people said it. Did you check the
Yeah.
settings? Yeah, we maxed out all the settings on all the things we tried.
At least we tried to.
Yeah. And we were going into an external DAC that has a digital readout that told us
Right.
what the res was of the track. So sometimes it was higher res, sometimes it was CD quality. But that's pretty much what we were dealing with. So we saw what we were playing, but that's the ticket. Like one format might have a higher res version. Qobuz might have a higher res version of the same track. So if you're just searching for a track with a name,
Right.
they probably default to the lower res version for bandwidth. That's what it feels
depends
like.
You got to
Setting.
turn it on in
Yeah.
the settings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
every
different settings.
seems like a trick every time.
Yeah.
So if you're just kind of rocking through this stuff and you're not paying attention to that, you don't even know what you're playing, unless you look for it.
Right.
So anyway, that's the confusion. There's a lot of confusion in that. I get it,
It's complex.
Yeah, it is complex.
But there is no simple answer. It really depends on what you prioritize, and it could be price, it could be convenience, it could be that you have multiple people that want to share it with you, and some of these have more competitive family packages and stuff.
I mean, if there was a definitive, this is the best sounding,
Right.
but they didn't have the music you listened to or wanted to listen to, well, would you even bother, right? Would you?
That's the issue, yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna just because the quality's the best. I'm gonna force myself to listen to this.
Some people would, though.
Maybe.
So it really is up to the viewer, I suppose.
Yeah, so I think, to sum it up, I think that the couple takes you get out of us doing this simple test, which, I mean, it took a few hours to set up and do properly. And even then, it wasn't so simple.
It was
All right?
more complicated and took longer than it
Yeah,
seems like.
yeah, it really was, and because we kind of wanted to hear the difference and see what was going on. We did, and but there was nothing definitive to choose
Right.
from for anyone, for all of us and together. I mean, we would all agree, I think, on what each service was doing, but we would disagree on which one we each liked,
Right.
Right.
because of what we were listening to.
Right.
Yeah.
So the takeaway is it depends on what you're using to listen to, the system, earbuds, high end. That's definitely a key factor. What are you using to listen to it with? Bluetooth headphones, right? That matters. And so, if you're just running simple Bluetooth stuff like that, you probably don't give a crap about all
It doesn't really matter.
resolution
And
stuff,
especially now
you
with
know?
Apple Music, I mean, if you're in the Apple ecosystem,
You're
already
in.
the app's already in there. You already know how to use it. You've
Yeah,
been using
it's
it.
simple.
So that's a whole different.
Well, convenience trumps on streaming, if you ask me. On
Convenience.
any of
That's why you do streaming usually, right? So
Yeah.
it makes sense.
Yeah,
If you
so-
like the app better,
or familiarity. I mean,
Sure.
if you're just used to using
And that's
it.
It
certainly a
integrates.
factor, And then, the lower res, like you were playing some music that had a lot of, let's call it energy that could be annoying with higher res systems. And
Yeah.
So you actually kind of, in part you too, were
Yeah.
kind of going toward the
Well, the
lower
songs
res
sound bad.
source.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
Right.
You were trying to purposely dumb it down by choosing a service that didn't quite give you the res.
well, there's the trouble.
you know?
Finding a service that sounds better is very complicated when the song doesn't sound very good to start
Yeah,
out
right.
with.
So you're basically looking for a service that's going to act like a tone control.
Maybe.
And that's fine, but yeah,
Yeah, because what can you do, right?
but don't argue about this stuff, because the reality of it is this all depends on you, how you're using it.
Right.
It's the same with everything else. in
Everything's
audio.
better for a reason.
Yeah.
But to pick a singular one that's superior in every regard,
Yeah. Yeah, you got to qualify it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is good because of this. This is good because of that. I don't know. It's kind of like, I guess it's kind of like colas and pops.
uh-huh.
Some people like Pepsi, some people like Coke, some people don't
People
like
are
either
very
of those.
passionate about it.
Some people just drink freaking water. Now they're
I only
comparing
drink
bottled
RC
water.
Cola.
Yeah, no, RC's cool. It could be cool.
Okay.
But I'm a Pepsi guy myself.
Oh.
But I'm okay with Coke. But the thing is, they're all colas.
Mm-hmm.
They all kind of perform the same when you chug them.
Well,
Sure.
They're all sugar drinks,
they're sugar water.
and and you can argue till the all hell freezes over about which one's better. But it really depends on your taste, so what you're after. So anyway, I think that's it. We just wanted to rehash that because it seems like there was some misunderstanding as to how
Right.
we came about what we came about, and it was more or less random. We chose
A little bit.
songs, each chose our own songs, but the outcome was an unknown because we didn't know what we were going to hear when we chose these songs to
Right.
listen to on these different formats.
Yeah, it's not like we tried it ahead
You
of
never
time.
used it.
Yeah, it's just
I
we went
did
right
because
into
I
it.
picked songs that I
On a
have
cer- yeah,
done
on a
this
service you-
hundreds
yeah.
of times. But you guys were more randomized.
It was an organic experience.
Yeah. So anyway, end of story.
But even though it was kind of random and organic, we still kind of did find the conclusion we were looking for, that there are differences.
Yeah, the words were
So-
uniform. It's just the conclusion might have varied slightly for various reasons.
Yeah, and if you can't hear the differences between the formats, then
Well, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah, right.
Pick which one you like.
it doesn't matter at that moment, but practice that. I mean, look for difference.
Some of the
change.
songs I couldn't hear a difference.
Try to hear
Probably
it.
because there really wasn't a difference. A lot of times they probably were the exact same file uploaded to both services, and if they were very similar formats or the same format,
Well, you normally need a clue, like, people need to experience the change in order to understand what it is. And sometimes if you never did that
Yeah.
before,
Well,
So you start to try to find something to key in on. And we talked about this in one of our other videos in the past, but transient response is something like, a cymbal hit, the initial impact, and then how it decays in time. Like just break apart something like a string, a string on a guitar. Break that apart. Listen to the initial struck, pluck of the string, how it decays.
Well, it's a lot easier than
a
taking
drum
the whole
hit.
thing all at once and trying to not focus on anything.
Yeah,
Then
well,
it's-
yeah, and I
too
mean,
much.
I don't want to get anyone paranoid on this, but that's how critical listening starts. Is you take that congealed sound of the music, and you go, okay, I'm going to listen just to the drummer and see what he's really doing, and listen to the
Maybe we
initial
should do a
impact.
video on this because I have a very
you're
different
right.
approach.
Yeah,
on this
you're
one.
right. Yeah, right, and this boils down to
it's kind of the
experience
same
and all that. The same anything listening, but yeah, let's do that. We'll do that. Talk about it later. Thanks
All right.
everybody for watching. We'll catch you next time. Take care.